Some guy come up to my truck. I'm sitting in my truck. I don't know what he's up to. But, give me a second. I ain't got someone.
All right.
You're away from my truck, man. I'm sorry. I'm still in Houston, so you never know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure podcast. That was actually our guest this week, Danny Scarborough, while I was on the horn with him down in the big city of Houston, Texas. So we're super excited about this week's guest. Before we get started, though, a couple things. We have an unbelievable couple of months coming up, okay? And I know I've said this before, and you know, we've always made these really cool announcements and stuff. So if you could do me a favor and go to our website, remotenopressure.com, and sign up for our mailing list, because we got a really cool announcement coming up here really soon. And it's going to be available to our mailing list first. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, we really appreciate you coming alongside us. If you could just give us a review up on iTunes or Google Play, that always helps tremendously, and sign up for our mailing list. Because that always helps us. And we're always excited to be able to stay in touch with you too. As you heard on the intro there, this week we have Danny Scarborough here from Houston, Texas. And it's so exciting. Every time I talk to anyone from Houston, because that's really my hometown, and it's great to see people fly fishing there. Danny has built quite a reputation for himself chasing carp, exotic fish underneath, you know, the overpasses and interstates there of Houston. And this week, we talked to him about his approach to fishing, what he calls the concrete flats. We also discuss fly casting off hay bales, the effects of Hurricane Harvey, and also, if any of you guys get the Drake, there was recently a write-up in there about Danny and his excursion with Clyde. So we talk about all of that. And so I'm really excited. Danny was an excellent guest, and I know you're going to really enjoy all he has to offer. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Well, today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, we have Danny Scarborough with us from Houston, Texas. Thank you very much for joining us, Danny.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Now, can you just tell us a little bit about fly fishing Houston? Now, I noticed one of the pictures you sent to me, there was like an apartment complex in the back, and we're going to post that up on our Instagram. But it looked like you had a client with you. Do you take these clients into the ditches of Houston, Texas?
Yeah, so in Houston, we have like a pretty decent urban fishery. There's several bayous that are just full of carp and bass and gar and a couple of weird exotics like that too, tilapia and different things that are kind of just not supposed to be there, like grass carp too and stuff like that. But yeah, so basically you can be within view of the city and catching fish on a fly rod on concrete.
Unbelievable. Now, are you the first one to do this, or who started taking people to fish out of the ditches?
So the first person I ever heard of was Mark Marmon. I think he's been doing it for 20 years.
Wow.
Locally in Houston. So that's kind of like the guru that I definitely learned from and based off of.
Wow,
in the urban sense.
Yeah, that's
he's
great.
the urban godfather. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but was born and raised in Houston. I was actually born in Bay City, Texas, right by Matagorda Bay. So that's where I grew up, in that whole area. And you know, being from Houston, in my backyard, it looks just like them. There was a giant ditch, and I remember we had a lot of alligator gar. We had all kinds of bass, and you know, it was, I grew up riding my bike over there and breaking off line on alligator gar, you know, but I wouldn't, I never thought romanticized it at all. But now with the pictures that you're taking and some of the fish that you've brought out, I mean, those are some pretty impressive catches that you've made, Danny.
Yeah. So people don't realize that, there are fish in there and they're up to 20 pounds, if not more. The problem with catching bigger than 20-pound fish there, or they usually don't fit on what we call concrete flats, because there has to be so much water on the flat to fit a fish, and generally there's a foot or less. But
Unbelievable.
it's a pretty cool deal.
Concrete flats. Now, there was a write up in the Drake about fly fishing Houston not that long ago.
Yeah, that was kind of about me and the Houston fly fishing urban scene, I guess, in general.
And you recently spent some time with Clyde, right?
Yeah, I had Clyde probably for 3 months.
So, can you just tell us
So,
about the process? I mean, they loan you out Clyde and you just kind of drive around and fish with it, or how does that work?
yeah, so Tom just kind of gives you like a mission, and basically your mission is to take Clyde fishing, number one, take him to the fly shops, and then if there's a story somewhere, do it. Which in Houston, we had the hurricane and kind of all that stuff, so we kind of did a little bit for that too. But yeah, so just you kind of end up just with Clyde for ever how long, and you be kind of like his babysitter for a little bit and feed him oil and gas and do the Clyde thing.
Yeah, yeah. And if anybody doesn't know who Clyde is, go to the local fly shop and purchase a copy of the Drake, and you'll find out real quick who Clyde is. So that's pretty cool because I never knew how that worked. And then I saw some pictures on your Instagram, and I was like, "Holy cow, that's Clyde!" So that's really cool. Now you were recently in Louisiana as well, correct?
Yeah, so delivering Clyde, I took him to Louisiana and fished with a couple guides, me and Tom, and got to just hammer some redfish and have a good time out there. We had a day where we caught 28 slots. One of them was a bull, actually.
Wow.
And then the next day we fished with David Mangum and caught at least 12 bull reds and at least half of them on topwaters. So it was just a good time. 20 to 25 pounders. Can't beat that.
Holy cow. And it was weird seeing Clyde pulling a flats boat behind it on one of your pictures, putting the flats boat
Yeah.
in the water. How did that work out? Did you have any problems
so
launching
Clyde,
the boat?
So Clyde doesn't do well with pulling boats. When we had Clyde here, we put a canoe behind him and took him to West Bay in Galveston.
Uh-huh.
And going up every bridge, he kind of backfires. So every bridge you go over, you got to deal with Clyde backfiring for a second. But other than that, he did get the job done. I would not go any heavier with a boat. It's pretty bad.
Wow, that's great. No, that's that sounds like a story in itself is pulling a boat with Clyde.
Yeah, definitely. It's a journey because you don't know either if Clyde's going to break down, if a tail light's going to go out, or whatever. If cops want to harass you.
But isn't that part of fly fishing is the story, the journey from, going somewhere and things break and it's part of the story, wouldn't you say? I mean, isn't that the quintessential idea of
Exactly, and I would say that's kind of where Clyde is kind of the epitome of that. You don't know what's going to happen.
Well, can you tell us a little bit, Danny, about your journey and how you ended up where you are right now?
So I don't know. I was raised bass fishing and always had an interest in fishing, and just kind of saw fly fishing on TV and decided to try it out and picked it up and started fishing the creeks and white bass and everything. And after a little bit of doing that, I quit conventional fishing altogether and then just took to it. And basically anything I can target with a fly rod, I do. So I don't know. I just took to it really well, and probably I'm a little addicted to it.
This story that you're telling us is not uncommon, Danny. People start and they're like, "Oh, I'll try this out," and the next thing you know, they've sold all their spinning gear and they're all into it. What do you think it is about fly fishing that makes you go all in? That it's just so addictive. Why do you think that is?
To me, it's just more one-on-one. I would say it's almost like how a hunter that's rifle hunting their whole life learns bow hunting and just quits rifle hunting almost. It's just like it's more in tune with what's going on and everything from making the cast to getting the fish to eat to fighting him with your hands, stripping him in, or if he takes you to reel, which hopefully he does, he's big enough to. I feel like it's just more one-on-one and more adventurous in a sense. And you're not worried about a bait haul or food or anything either. You're just trying to have fun and hopefully catch something on a fly rod.
Right. Now, what did you do before? I mean, now you're working at the fly shop there in Houston, and then you are guiding as well. on the concrete flats. I love that. That is like the coolest thing. What did you do before you got into this? I mean, have you always worked in the fly fishing industry since you were able to work, or what does your career journey look like, Danny?
Well, before I just immersed myself in fly fishing, I was working at oil and gas kind of supply company and worked there for 4 or 5 years. And while doing that, I started part-time guiding on Lake Houston, Lake Conroe, and on the concrete flats like we're talking about. And just from there, decided I'd rather do fly fishing. And I was getting so busy that I was working and then on weekends taking people fishing. So I just got to the point where I was like, I'm pretty sure I could do this on my own. So started after a little bit, decided to full-time guide and just kind of went with it. And BCA offered me this job too that just obviously goes hand in hand. So at this point, I'm just fully immersed in the fly fishing industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now,
went into it, yeah.
BCA being Bayou City Anglers, correct?
Bayou City Angler, yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, can you tell us a little bit about Lake Houston? There in Atascocita and Kingwood area. Is that where you would fish quite a bit, or?
So Lake Houston, I typically go there. It's also really close to Houston. It's within 30 minutes of Houston. And for me, from my house, it's a 10-minute drive. So I've been fishing there, first of all, because of its, location, and then also because of the white bass run, which I was raised doing. I probably started doing that when I was like 8 or 10 years old. And then just from there, when I lived in Kingwood for about 4 or 5 years, I learned to bass fish it. And so to me, it made sense to offer that. And, it's not a big bass fishery. Usually you catch a big bass there, it's 4 or 5 pounds. But it's a blast, and it's got, everything you'd look for in fly fishing, the upper creeks where you can catch spotted bass and largemouth and crappie and catfish and all that stuff, to the more big bass lake style stuff with lagoons and structure and, lily pads and all that kind of frog and fun stuff that you can do on the lakes. But yeah, so it was location and the time I had spent on it just made sense.
Well, let's talk.
There's some big carp in there too. I caught a 20-pounder there last year, and there's just kind of hit and miss on them, but when they're there, it's good.
Huh. The lake there, Lake Houston, when Hurricane Harvey came through, that whole area really flooded really bad. I mean, Kingwood High School, they're still not, I think they're closed for the entire school year.
Yeah, they're out.
Can you tell us a few stories about that? I mean, what went on in your mind? What was your first thought as you saw all this water? How did you think it would affect the fishery, and how did it affect the fishery, or do you not really see much of an effect?
Well, I knew, once I saw how much water we got, that there's going to be structural changes, and there are definitely. But other than that, fish seem to find a way. They may get displaced a little bit, but they seem to always find their way back. But other than that, structure-wise, it's insane what the upper rivers have done, changing-wise. Like, beaches are gone, new beaches are formed, trees are down, new log jams, all kinds of stuff. But since then, it's been 2 or 3 months, I've been out fishing, and I haven't experienced a loss of fish by any means. The fish are there. The fishing's just how it should be. So just mostly structural changes, and then, people's whose life were affected by it, of course, because Kingwood was flooded. People were displaced. It's one of those deals where every other street had a problem just about. But, it's pretty crazy to see what all that can do. Structural changes, the amount of water that went through. 80,000 CFSs on the San Jacinto River is pretty insane.
Holy cow! Yeah, that's insane. And just seeing
it may have been 60 or 70. I don't remember, but I know it was somewhere between 60 and 80. So don't quote me on the number, but it was pretty high up there.
Either
it was the
way,
highest they'd ever had to release. Yeah.
Either way, 60 or 80,000 CFS. Give or take.
Well, that's nothing. We stayed at the ranch. Off Trinity River, and it was 110,000 CFSs.
Wow, good grief! Now
we were stuck there for 6 days.
Was that out off I-10, like by Old River area?
It's off 59. It's off 59 north. It's actually just a little bit further north of Kingwood, probably about 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah. My brother lives in Lufkin, So we'd always take
Yeah,
59 up there.
it's just south of Lake Livingston. It's right there.
Oh, okay, okay. And you guys got a lot of rain. You were stuck there, huh?
Oh yeah, we were stuck there for 6 days. The Trinity River was in the ranch, on the ranch. We were basically on like the high ground.
Wow. Well, now I noticed because we had Jim Gephardt. He has ontheflymag.com. I think you know Jim, right?
Oh yeah, I know Jim.
Yeah, he referenced a fly you created, the ugly crazy Charlie that you tied. Am I correct? What was the name of that fly?
I call it a brass hawk, and so for me, it's just a good shallow water common carp fly, and then the olive version. I do an orange and an olive, a crawfish orange and an olive version. The olive version just kills on grass carp. I mean, I don't use any other fly almost. It just the only time if they ever reject it, just change colors. But generally, olive is the way to go for grass carp.
I think we have some orange ones on our site. I've got some pictures from Jim, but if you could get us a picture, if you'd be willing to share a picture of one of your olive ones, that would be great because we could put it up there for people to see and people to check out. Because that particular episode, a lot of people, because everyone's trying. I mean, carp is the sexy fish right now, and everyone's trying to figure out how to catch them. So if you could if you could show us to us, we'd love to see that.
Yeah, I can definitely send you some photos. I have some that we used to do a fly swap years ago through Fly Carp, and Trevor Tanner took some professional photos of it. Mm-hmm. So I can probably get you an actual legit photo of the fly.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Now, Bayou City Angler, not long after the hurricane, they did a fundraiser. Am I right? For the people who were affected?
Yes, sir. Yeah, for the Hurricane Harvey. People who were affected in the area, mostly down in like Rockport and stuff like that, because they had the most wind damage and really water that went through too. But I guess Houston got 50 inches in some places, which is insane. But they had the wind damage. We had the flooding.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about Rockport. I mean, is it even in those southeast Texas towns, that have been hit? Can you tell us a little bit about those? I mean, does Rockport even exist anymore, or is it completely gone? Or
it exists. Structurally, there are a lot of things gone. There are a lot of people gone. A lot of damage. They're recovering. There are hotels open now. They are a sportsman's based kind of town. They're living off duck hunting and guiding and some of the restaurants and beaches and things they offer in the area. So it's definitely going to be hard on them, hard to recover. But it just takes time. In another year or so, you'll see so many more businesses open up and see a lot of the destruction and everything cleaned up and rebuilding. It's pretty crazy to see the changes, though. It's crazy.
Now, were you born and raised?
Fishing-wise, it's good.
Now, were you born and raised in Texas then, Danny?
Yeah, I'm from the Houston area. I'm from Splendora.
Okay. There's not a lot of people that were actually born and raised in Houston. Most people seems like, especially in Kingwood, Atascocita, everyone's transplants are very, moving in and out all the time. So I was just curious if you were born and raised there.
Yep. Small town. Whenever I was there, it was 1,500 people. Thinking maybe 2,000 now.
And there's a Brookshire Brothers there, correct?
No, it was actually Archie's grocery store. That's our grocery store.
Okay. It's so cool to talk to you because, I'm in Michigan, so it's cool to talk to someone kind of from my old stomping grounds, so that's always cool. So, what do you think? I mean, there's been big hurricanes that have hit, Louisiana, Florida, and I was like, what do you think is different about Texans whenever they're presented with a natural disaster?
I would just say how everyone seems to come together and help. I mean, you saw everything from people in skiffs out saving people to just regular people donating food, time, helping clean out houses. There just seems to be a lot of people who just want to help everyone, especially if they're not damaged. Even some that are, still help others. So it's pretty cool to see, such a big city come together and not care who you are, what you do, and just help you out.
Now, what are some stories? Could you share with us a story or two that you heard from people who are rescuing people in the flood?
trying to think of some off the top of my head. I mean, really, nothing really crazy. I'm just, people driving boats in the streets and going around trying to save people, kind of a deal. My grandma was at the nursing home in Kingwood, and the Cajun Navy had to come in and kind of rescue them. Their basement area was flooded, and basically stories like that everywhere. Just people helping people and coming to people's rescue and seeing the Houston firefighters and police and everyone come in and the Cajun Navy and other people doing the same stuff come together. It was a cool deal. I don't really have any specific stories off the top of my head. There's people who were probably more involved. Like I said, I was stranded for 6 days.
What did you do those 6 days?
I didn't get to really assist in much.
What did you do for 6 days when you're just? Oh,
don't get me wrong. We had it good. We were at the ranch. Our intention was to watch the Mayweather McGregor fight, and we planned to be there for the weekend, and ended up being there for a few days instead. So we were stuck at the ranch. We were there to watch the McGregor fight. Planned to be there for the weekend, and the hurricane hit the night of the McGregor fight, and we realized pretty quick that we were stuck there for a while. We didn't realize how long. So we ran out of beer in 3 days because that's how long we planned to be there. And just kind of got cabin fever and the whole deal. We had plenty of food and all that stuff and just had to deal with each other. And every time there was a break in the rain, everyone would go outside, get away from each other, go fishing because there's a lake right there and everything. But we were able to fish. The lake did rise probably 4 or 5 feet at least. So that was interesting. We got to catch bass off the road we usually drive on.
Wow.
We literally casting off hay bales, flooded fields on hay bales. The bass were coming in and eating crawfish and stuff. But like I said, we had it good. We were stuck there for just 6 days dealing with each other, getting a little cabin fever. But the reason we were stuck there the longest, the water had receded probably day 4 or 5 to an extent where we could almost leave. But there was actually some trees down across the road. So a couple people had to walk up the road and find someone to come in and help us chainsaw some trees and all that. But yeah, nothing as bad as other people. Leaving was pretty crazy because, we were in our little bubble. So on our way out, we just seen, things like railroad tracks washed out, medians, the concrete medians, the blocks they put in the middle of the road washed over and moved. So it was pretty crazy to see that stuff. And even more, like, even now I go around the road and see it. People's houses were flooded and moved and stuff like that too, which was just crazy to see. Like the East Fork River got so high out of its banks and was able to move a house or something like that. It was pretty insane.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Now, where you're at right now in your career, I mean, what are you pursuing? What are you going after? What's next for you, Danny? Do you think you're just going to continue to guide? Do you want to continue on in this path, or what are your plans, and what do you see as the future of guiding in Houston and the future of all that's going on there?
For the most part, I'm filling out. Obviously, I want to be in the industry. I love guiding. If I can develop Houston into a bigger, better deal, that'd be even better. I think maybe a boat would help instead of just doing paddle and walk and wade trips. But so just seeing how that goes and being more and more immersed in the industry, things like doing stuff with the Drake and Clyde and, talking to people and involved in the shop and getting to kind of meet all kinds of different people that come in, travel the world and everything. I think it's really cool. And I personally enjoy fishing a lot. I will say I am pushing a new species on the fly, bowfin on the fly. I know people do it and it exists, but I do guide for it. That's another cool thing that I recommend people looking into. I think that once people kind of see how that goes and that its similarity to red fishing and all that stuff, and kind of their behavior is also unique. And some people will pick up to that too. So I'd love to see that kind of take, especially in Houston and other places. But I really don't know. I don't ever really plan that far ahead, I guess. I really hope to be successful as a guide service and kind of keep people coming and fishing. And people don't even realize what Houston has to offer. And so getting the word out is also a big deal, and not necessarily a struggle, but a task. There's locals who don't even realize that you can fly fish in Texas. But who knows? We shall see.
Well, it's really funny because, like I said, I grew up down there, and I always fished on spinning gear, growing up when I fished the salt. I moved to Michigan, started fly fishing up here. And then I realized, hey, there's a lot of people that fly fish in Houston, So,
Oh yeah.
and it's funny because I track all of our statistics on who listens and who downloads the Remote No Pressure podcast. Houston is Houston and Texas in general. I mean, we've had some great people. I mean, TFO, Rick Pope was on our podcast. He's based out of Dallas. We had quite a few people on our podcast from Texas. We get tons of downloads, and I know I'm from there and everything, but it's not intentional. These are people that I don't know. So obviously there's a booming industry in Texas for fly fishing that to me, I don't know because I wasn't involved, but I know there was a fly shop back in the day off Westheimer, and I don't think it was Bayou City. It was another one. I think there'd been a couple through the years, but nothing really stuck. And it seems like now things are really moving and grooving, and it's really, really cool to see that happening down in Texas.
Yeah, there's definitely a growth rate in the fly fishing industry. I would say youth also is getting more involved, So, and then the urban thing and all that stuff kind of helps Houston. But Houston seemed to always have a pretty big population of fly fishers. GRTU is one of the biggest trout unlimited organizations,
Wow.
in Texas, which is insane to think of. Is something like that is such a big deal in Texas. But
right,
yeah, it's cool to see stuff like that and clothing and Yeti and Howard Brothers and all these other companies that pop up, and to see them succeed, it's really cool. And then to see Texas become a thing in the fly fishing world. I know it wasn't easy to convert all the Texans, or even some of them.
Yeah, they're a proud bunch. But that's awesome that of what you guys are doing now. One more question for you: how did you end up targeting bowfin? How did that come about?
So Lake Conroe is my place of choice for it. It's clear water and all that stuff. But originally, I still do. I did it because I was targeting grass carp. And I'd go in there and just kind of pull the shallow mud flats of Lake Conroe and try to stick these 20-plus pound grass carp, which mostly ends in failure, but you do have successful days and eats and all that stuff. So while doing that, I just kept seeing these bowfin, and probably contemplated 6 months how I was going to catch these mysterious fish that I knew nothing about, and studied them a little bit and just kind of found what I could about them. And one day I got pissed off at the grass carp, which happens, often enough. But tied on a crawfish pattern and proceeded to stick 4 bowfin on the fly. First time I ever tried. So after that, I was just hooked and realized its potential. It's blind casting. It's also sight fishing. You get this crazy eat from them. If you're doing it sight fishing, they have that long top fin that wiggles like an eel right before they eat. So getting that fired up fish right before he just hammers your fly is just awesome. And then, like I said, behavior. They actually are so curious that so you're paddling around looking for them, and you're going over structure or vegetation or something, and you look to your right and there's a bowfin looking at you like, what are you doing in my area?
Wow.
Which is just insane to see. And then while they're doing that, if you can flick a fly over before he realizes he doesn't like you and twitch it, he'll usually eat it, which is really cool too. And then just things like in the summer, they're bimodal, bimodal, however you say it. But they breathe oxygen and they have a gill system. And so you can have oxygen-deprived waters, which they thrive in still, as long as there's fish or fruit in there. And they gulp air, so you can sit in an area, wait, and watch for a gulp, and go work that area and usually pull them up. But it's a cool predator, another one that you can sight fish, and they're aggressive. They'll eat big flies, little flies, top waters, all kinds of stuff like that. So just kind of, I don't know, it's crazy. It's a cool little thing, and I really enjoy doing it. It's a cool fish to kind of learn. Still learning as I go, but I think I got it down to a little bit. And they get up to about 15, 20 pounds. I think the world record's like 21 pounds. So that's another really cool thing to get a fish that big. And no one targets them. Bass guys hate them because they fight and they think they have the biggest bass they ever caught. Get them in only to find out it's a bowfin, so they're disappointed with that. But so it's kind of cool. You have this rejected fish that, everyone kind of hates or thinks it's a snakehead or something like that. And so you have it to yourself, that's another cool thing. You can be on the flat all day, and no one up there is fishing unless the bass are spawning up shallow.
Right.
But yeah, just I guess kind of the adventure of it too, in a sense. It's a different, unique, prehistoric fish, and they're aggressive.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I've never caught one. I'm have to try that out. Now, we really, what I like about you, Danny, and why I'm so happy and so thankful that you chose to talk with us is because you're really passionate about fly fishing, and you're really passionate about what you're doing. And for that, we just really appreciate what you're doing, Danny. If someone wanted to get a hold of you to go fishing in Texas on the concrete flats or wherever, how would they go about doing that, Danny?
So I have a website, HoustonFlyFishing.com. You can kind of check it out and kind of see what there is to offer and see some of the photos of the fish and everything caught there. And then just email HoustonFlyFishing@gmail.com, or even Instagram at HoustonFlyFishing. Any of that stuff works for me. Website's probably the easiest way, or email. And yeah, contact me, and we can always work something out if you want to come do something like that.
Well, that sounds great. Well, we'll put all those links up on our podcast notes, on our blog as well, and also on Instagram. We'll tag you in that. Thank you so much, and you have a great night, Danny.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Danny, and thank you for joining us this week on the Remote No Pressure Podcast. Don't forget to check out our website at remotenopressure.com. Sign up for our mailing list. Super exciting announcements coming down the pipe. Also, check out our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter. You know what to do. And until next time, go fishing.